Welcome to First Flight, a new podcast by FlightGlobal. I'm your host, Amber Elias, and in this episode, I'll be speaking with Stephanie Ware, Vice President of Aviation Development at Gatwick Airport. Stephanie Ware joined Gatwick in 2021 from Philadelphia International Airport after a career in foreign trade and tourism. Gatwick is the UK's second busiest airport, serving over 18.5 million passengers in the first 6 months of 2023, and with an ambitious target to be a net zero airport by 2030, it is focused on rebuilding and growing sustainably. Stephanie, hi, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. So, what is your background in aviation, and how did you get started?
I've been doing this for a while now. So I got started through sort of a bit of a unique path. I got started really when I was in Spain. I was living in the Canary Islands and was very involved in foreign investment and tourism because they're the biggest sort of economic drivers of the Canary Islands. And very quickly realized that if we didn't have connectivity, we didn't have anything. We weren't able to bring tourists in and we weren't able to attract foreign investors. So started to work very closely with the airport and then actually ended up taking over route development for both airports in Tenerife. And that sort of got me started in my love for aviation and my path in this industry. From there, I went to Philadelphia International Airport, where I was not just involved in route development, but also in cargo. So at that point in time, I was leading the largest greenfield cargo expansion program in the US. It was really, really exciting. And then I got the call from Gatwick and decided that there was no place I'd rather be, and still firmly believe that Gatwick is one of the largest airports with really ambitious plans and a really exciting future.
So how is Gatwick sort of shaping itself to meet its ambitious goals, net zero by 2030?
So we're doing a lot of things. I think one of the things that we're really focused on is how do you grow in a sustainable way that also meets the needs of our region and provides that economic growth. So we want to grow and we want to provide an excellent passenger experience for all of our passengers that use the airlines that fly out of Gatwick. We're working very, very closely with all of the airline community. We've added a huge number of new airlines, all of which have their own sustainability plans. We've put in new connections all around the world. So this summer we'll have over 218 destinations served out of Gatwick. More than 50 of those will be international destinations. We're providing those links for sustainable travel. And at the same time, we're investing in our infrastructure. It's really important for us. We've moved up our sustainability goals by 10 years. We want to be the first airport in the UK with a plan to address scope 1 and 2 and become net zero by 2030. We're working with our airlines to address scope 3 and to help the UK government reach their net zero goals by 2050. So we're going to do that by focusing on sustainable aviation fuel, by focusing on airspace modernization, and looking at new and innovative ways of exploring electric and hydrogen aircraft.
And you mentioned sort of sustainable fuels, maybe even something like hydrogen. And I know a lot of other sort of manufacturers in Europe are really focused on developing the technology to achieve a lot of our sustainable goals. Is that sustainable airport different than the one that we might recognize now?
It's not going to be different. It's going to be better. So a lot of the things that will happen, the passenger might not even notice. So for example, a plane that is flying anywhere around the world, a passenger might not necessarily know that it's being fueled by sustainable fuel instead of regular jet fuel. We trialed a proof of concept in October of 2021 with EasyJet to have one of the first sustainable flights out of Gatwick using SAF. So those are the types of things that the passenger might not notice, but there are other things that the passenger would notice. So for example, Gatwick is the first airport in the world to offer an electric forecourt. So that means that passengers and people from the community can come to the airport and charge their cars. It's 100% solar generated electricity. And this will help reduce our dependence on fossil fuels from regular vehicles. So we're very, very excited about that. So those are the types of things that a passenger would be able to see, for example. Another thing that they might see is that all of the vehicles at Gatwick will be electric cars in the next few years, and that will reduce our emissions significantly.
And how does sustainability, obviously it's such an important topic for aviation. It's, undeniably the biggest change that our industry will be facing in the next 10, 20, 100 years. But are there other sort of changes that Gatwick is making in a strategic way in the next couple of years?
Yes, so we're investing £250 million in cutting our emissions. So this isn't something that we just say that we're going to do it. There is an actual plan, an approved investment plan behind that to cut the emissions that are under the airport's direct control. So like I mentioned, the vehicles, we're going to replace our gas boilers with low carbon alternatives. We're investing in on-site renewable energy, including solar power, and we're continuing to source all of our electricity from 100% renewable electricity. So again, it's really about looking at ways that we can do things today that will cut down our emissions, and working with our partners for important things like SAF that we know that need to scale up in order for the industry to become more sustainable.
We are coming out of the pandemic very slowly, hopefully right at the tail end of it. Have you seen the traffic at the airport come back to pre-pandemic levels, or do you think it ever will?
Not only is traffic going to come back to pre-pandemic levels, but we are planning for significant growth. So we welcomed over 40 million passengers last year, and this year we expect to be at about 95% of our 2019 passenger levels. And then in the years to come, we think we'll surpass that by millions of passengers as we look to grow.
And are you expecting that trend to be worldwide, or is that specifically at London Gatwick?
I do think aviation will bounce back. It has in a lot of regions, and specifically in a constrained London market, I think what you will see is that London Gatwick will be one of the fastest growing airports in London in the future. If you look at all the growth that we've brought in the last year from the likes of Delta, Air India, Air China, China Southern, Saudia, and Air Mauritius, we're really looking at a globally connected Gatwick.
So bringing in all these new airlines obviously means that there's a lot of slot reform that happens. How does Gatwick approach slot reform?
So we try and be incredibly active in the slot world and in slot reform in particular. I myself are on the expert group of slots and on the ACI task force, trying to be a leader, not just in the UK, but in Europe and around the world. Slot reform is essential, right? This was a system that was created years and years and years ago. The system has changed significantly. Low-cost carriers have come on the scene since the slot system was created. Low-cost carriers and leisure travel have been booming, and really the system needs to respond to the needs of a modern aviation system. It needs to provide more choice. It needs to allow for more competition, and it needs to have the system be a little bit more balanced, where airports have more say, and where the coordinator has true independence to implement a very clear, transparent system. So it's critical. I think we are so welcoming of the UK initiative to have put out the slot reform consultation. We've put together a really strong response, and we've worked really closely with the other UK airports that are affected by slots to make sure that we are really thinking about what reforms need to happen today to respond to the needs of the future. That means best allocation. It means using your infrastructure as efficiently as possible and promoting competition, because all of those things will ultimately benefit the consumer. And that's what needs to happen. The consumer needs to have the best choice for what they need.
Speaking of the consumer, obviously it can be quite competitive within the market, particularly with low-cost carriers. And I know London Gatwick is the home of EasyJet in the UK. What new routes is London Gatwick able to offer customers?
EasyJet is our biggest airline at Gatwick, and they have a fantastic and diverse program, short-haul program all over Europe. But we're not just a low-cost European leisure airport. I think that's really important for people to understand. We have a lot of carriers that fly all over the world. And in particular, we've seen a huge influx of new international carriers in the last 12 months. So from Gatwick, you can fly to the US on Delta, on British Airways, on TUI, on Norse. There's a lot of choice to fly to several destinations in the US. That's just one good example. Another one is we had never had previously direct flights to India. Air India has now come in with an incredibly strong program. Since they've started almost a year ago, they've added more frequencies. They're flying to 4 destinations. And for the first time this summer, we're going to have the 3 big Chinese carriers. So Air China, China Southern, China Eastern, all flying, connecting us to the major hubs in China. Very, very exciting news. We've also seen growth from the Middle East. So Emirates and Qatar and Saudi flying from the Middle East, and more flights from Africa. So Ethiopian started last year for the first time. We've seen Air Mauritius come over from Heathrow and start flights as well. And we have some more good news that we'll be announcing very shortly. Singapore just announced that they would be starting flights in the summer. That's a huge addition, and one we're very proud of at Gatwick. So you'll be seeing more routes definitely from Asia, from India, and from the US in the coming months.
Excellent. And you mentioned China. Has the Chinese market come back post-pandemic, or are we still seeing that over the next year or so?
It has come back, and for Gatwick, it's actually grown significantly. So we've seen a 200% increase in the number of flights that we will have this summer compared to what we had pre-pandemic.
How has the customer experience changed at London Gatwick? Maybe since post-pandemic, but more so just with the increase of new technologies that are available.
I think it was one of the things that was so exciting that happened at Gatwick last year was launching our new brand and vision. And that is really the best summary of everything that we are trying to do for the airport's next phase of growth. We have really listened to our passengers, to our airlines, to our real retail partners, and to all of our stakeholders to understand what they need, how they want to see the airport modernize. And we've taken a very sort of multi-dimensional approach. We want to be the airport for everyone, whatever their journey. And that's really important because it's reflected in the type of investment that you're starting to see, in the type of experience that you'll have in our terminals. We are undertaking a huge project right now to make our departure lounges a more attractive place to spend time, to have a better customer experience, to have a more efficient journey through the airport, and to offer all of those services, whether it be, shopping or the right type of food and beverage that the customer is looking for. So you're going to start to see in the spring of this year a completely refreshed North Terminal, new seating, new flooring, digital signage everywhere. It's going to look like a brand new modern airport. We're very, very excited. And as soon as we get done in the North Terminal, we'll start in the South. So it's all about making sure that we are delivering that sort of personalized experience to meet the passengers' individual needs, and making sure that all of our investment in the airport is focusing on ease, efficiency, and a fantastic experience.
Absolutely. It sounds like the passenger experience is really at the heart of London Gatwick, which is great to hear as a frequent flyer from there.
Well, we appreciate your business. It is what makes London Gatwick such an exciting place to be right now. Is I don't know any other airport that is so focused on sustainable growth and meeting the passengers' individual needs and really putting the passenger at the heart of it all.
Yeah, definitely. And, what does the airport of the future look like for you? There's so many new technologies available, so many sort of future ideas. What does London Gatwick in 10, 15, 20 years look like for you?
Seamless. So London Gatwick in 20 years is a bigger airport. It is flying to more destinations. It has more choice of airlines, and we are using technology to give a seamless and safe experience so that from the second you arrive into the airport to the second you take off, it is easy, it's enjoyable, and it is giving you exactly what you're looking for in your journey.
And have you had a buy-in from some people like, border security or with the airlines to encourage that future seamless experience?
We have. I think the one thing that we really understand at Gatwick is we are not alone in this, and we have to bring everyone along on our journey because we have so many different stakeholders in this, right? The airlines have to put their part, Border Force has to put their part, ground handlers have to understand how the airport is changing. We're all in it together. Ultimately, the passenger just wants a great experience, right? They want it to be hassle-free, they want it to be easy, they want it to be seamless. And they don't always know who's responsible for what part of their journey. So we all need to be working towards that one excellent customer experience, and we all need to integrate the different parts of what we do together. So it's incredibly important. And like I said, we really look to find partners that have the same goals that we do, that want to be sustainable, that want to reach net zero, that want to invest in the future, that puts the customer at the heart of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned baggage handlers. This might be, or hopefully is a problem of the past, but have you noticed that the staffing levels have come back up to where they need to be to operate efficiently at the airport with baggage handlers and ground crew?
We have, and it's something that we put a lot of focus on coming out of the pandemic. There were resourcing issues across the industry, but we were incredibly proactive in that as an airport. We made sure that we brought back our staff for our security as quickly and as safely as we could, and we made sure that we worked with all of our partners so that they could resource appropriately, making sure we understood what the airlines were doing and how they were ramping up as well. So I do not foresee any issues in the future on that.
So is Gatwick looking to expand to be a bigger airport, bigger for customers, bigger, more airlines, more slots, more competition, more choice for passengers?
That absolutely. And that is a very, very timely question. So we are currently the busiest single runway operation in the world, but we actually have 2 runways. We just can't use them simultaneously. They're too close together. So we have put in a planning application, which would effectively allow us to reposition the shorter of the 2 runways 12 meters to the north, and it would allow for both runways to be used simultaneously. That is going to add a huge amount of resiliency into London Gatwick, and it will allow us to bring in more capacity. We think that there's a huge case for that. It is making best use of the existing capacity. The runway exists today. You can go out and see it. It's just too close to be able to operate together. So we think that this is the best, most sustainable way for Gatwick to grow. And we've just entered into the examination part of the process where we can go and explain our case to a planning inspectorate so they can do an independent review. We're really excited about it. It's a 6-month process, and then hopefully we'll get an answer so we can get underway. But ultimately, a more resilient operation that allows for new carriers to come in and for our current carriers to add more flights is ultimately in the consumer's benefit. There's going to be more flights, more choice, different products to pick from, and ultimately competition stimulates lower prices. So it's a win-win for everyone.
And I assume you've had the full support from Gatwick's partner airlines for that expansion or that utilization, I guess. It's hardly, when I think of expansion, I think of adding extra space. But as you said, it's actually utilizing the infrastructure that is available in the most optimized way.
In a better way. I think everyone recognizes how constrained London is as a market. It's the largest aviation market in the world. And we've had incredible support from carriers that are looking to expand their London presence, that either want to add more flights or that are currently unable to get slots, the famous, infamous slots at Gatwick. So we've had great support from them wanting to grow into Gatwick.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me today on this episode. It's been a pleasure to chat, and I can't wait to fly out from Gatwick.
I will be happy to meet you when you come. Thanks for hosting me. I really, really enjoyed the conversation.
First Flight is a production of FlightGlobal and is hosted and executive produced by Amber Elias. Audio production by storysolutions.net. If you have any questions, comments or suggestions, or for commercial opportunities, please email podcast@flightglobal.com, and more information can be found in the show notes. Listen, rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.